Okay. Hey, greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. This is Cassandra Faye Floyd, also known as Faith. And again, I cannot. I am back for the last of ooh. I'm reading the first prophetess of Mami Wata. Come on now. I had difficulty with my broadband. Let me just fix everything up out of here. I don't know. We shall see. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move through this pretty quick, but I will start with a little housekeeping. If you are tuning in via YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you'll see scrolling across the bottom of the screen all the information on how to like, share, and subscribe. Follow all of my various types of social media. This is important because, for one, I am trying to monetize my YouTube page. So the other aspect of my housekeeping is, if you are tuning in from those other areas or avenues, IG, Facebook, or and this and go ahead and check. It seems retrograde. So my from my laptop, for whatever reason, my bandwidth or my connection is really sketchy, more so than it has been the whole week. So all I can do is tell you to bear with me. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, we're gonna get to it. I got this is the last reading. What I'm assuming is the book is officially done, like I said last night, but there is still a ton of information under all of these pictures that have captions. So the ones that I feel like are going to be really important, I'm just going to read through those. Let's see. Actually, I think I'm just going to move through these, and then I'm going to talk to you, because I think that, yeah, this is pretty much the end of it. Let's go on through. Okay, so here's one that I do want to read. Sibyl as sorceress, and then Sibyl as the bat. Okay, African tradition of calling up the dead. Above, featured on Moore's coat of arms, this bat lady is none other than the Cumaean Sibyl Herophile, or one of her predecessors. They probably acquired the name Bat Sibyl because the totem symbol of the bat signifies the gentle, unobstructive, civil, and shrewd character of this path of the Sibyls, rather than the stereotypic dark, maleficent nature Black priestesses would later acquire. It was also the symbol of one who could call up and speak to the spirits of the dead, such as the ancient tradition of the Megasees and certain mamiwata of the Mami Wata tradition in West Africa. During ancient times, the Sibyls would take the blood of a sacrificed bull and mix it with a secret beverage that they drank to induce trance possession. To induce trance possession. This was simply one of the many ways in which possession was achieved. During these ecstatic trance states, the Sibyls would either roll about on the ground in full possession or march back and forth uttering prophetic prose in what became infamously known as the eerie voice of a bat. The shrine of the Cumaean symbol was located in a volcanic rock depression beside Lake Avernus in Cumaea, Rome, and surrounded by oak and the black poplar tree sacred to Mami Wata and the solar sun gods. It was at these brackish waters where they would perform ceremonies back and forth to bring them forth from the dead. It was one of these type Sibyls whom the biblical Saul went to in the town of Endor, disguised and begging her to call up the spirit of the priest Samuel, after he had earlier just ordered all mediums and wizards of the city out of the city. It is perhaps, let's see. Yep, that's right. It is perhaps also, let me take it up. It is perhaps also from these divine women that the word necromancy, originally negromancy, was initially introduced. It later became exclusively employed to refer to anyone practicing the mystical and magical arts of African and Afro-Elamitic people. Racist epithets such as black magic, trickery, wizardry, sorcery, witchcraft, and evil spirits were pejorative labels later employed to describe any African-based religious system. Thus, it is no surprise that during medieval Rome, the Sibyls, not white witches, were the first to be accused of witchcraft and uttering the voices of demons. They were the first to be burned at the stake, and the black Chaldean priests literally crucified for heresy and witchcraft. They possessed the spiritual power and ancient mystical knowledge that could expose the fraudulent theology of the church. They were, therefore, the biggest threat to the papacy, who possessed no divine lineage or authority and thus could never perform the miracles of the spirit, as did these black clergy. However, today, these special priestesses are called Amagensi, and the tradition of their ancient mothers of calling up the spirits of the dead and other divinities is still extant in the Voodoo and Mami Wata religions in West Africa and in the diaspora. Sibyl sorceress. Above 7 BC, there is a mosaic entitled Women Consulting Sorceress. The women are wearing masks according to the museum description. However, their faces appear to be covered in the African traditional white ayala, kaolin. The sorceress is clearly a Sibyl depicted in usual Gorgon style as the old black hag. It is interesting to note, hold on just a second. If you need a chair, you can take one out there, but I would prefer my neighbors be doing the most. You can take one of them white chairs. It is interesting to note that the Old English word for hag is serpent. Is serpent. In Mami Wata Voodoo, a queen priestess over 50 is honored, feared, and respected with the title of Akovi. Above, she holds the sacred wine and maize beverage. This beverage was served in a silver chalice and drank to induce trance possession by some Python priestess. Notice also the legendary bay laurel garland on the table, sacred to Mami and eaten before performing divination. Similar rites. Similar rites are still performed in voodoo and other tradition and other African branches. These kind of paintings were as much political as they were racist. After the Roman conquest of Pompeii, Rome continued their campaign of discrediting the Black pagan traditions and replacing it with Christianity. However, the Romans were very much pagan and secretly enjoyed and practiced in many of the African religious festivities. Pompeii, Villa of Cicero, Naples, National Archaeological Museum. So I guess this is where that painting can be found. It was widely rumored that it was actually the Sibyls who invented the alphabet. This was achieved, legend has it, by them writing down the prophetic voices that they heard onto laurel or palm leaves while in a semi-self-induced trance. So widespread was this belief that Roman poet Virgil, 70 to 19 BCE, hailed as one of Rome's greatest poets, immortalized it into the poem below. Virgil's ode to the Sibyl Cumæa. Quote, arrived at Cumæa, when you view the flood of black of Avernus and the sounding wood, the mad and prophetic Sibyl you shall find dark in a cave and on a rock reclined. She sings the fates, and in her frantic fits, the notes and named inscribed to leaves commit. What she commits to leaves in order laid before the cavern's entrance are displayed. Unmoved they lie, but if a blast of wind without or vapors issued from behind, the leaves are borne aloft in liquid air, and she resumes no more her liquid care, nor gather from the rocks her scattered verse, nor sets in order what the winds disperse. Thus, many not succeeding, most upbraid the madness of the visionary maid, and with loud curses leave the mystic shade. The unholy African mother, the papal wars against Mami Isis, and the mystical power of African women. So they're showing another stone carving of a Sibyl with what appears to be a serpent in her belly. This Sibyl, demonized by the church as Eve, can be found copulating with a serpent on the church arch of Oo, located in Haute-Garonne, a region of France. Degrading images such as these were displayed at more than 60 churches throughout France and were actually preemptive strikes against their powerful rival, African temples of Mami Isis, whom the people were more devoted. The war waged for the destruction of African and African-influenced mystery schools by the growing Roman authorities was met with great resistance throughout the world. That carving is at the Toulouse Museum. By the 1500s and 1600s, the war on African religious culture and clergy continued to be an important central target of the Vatican authorities. Its primary aim was not only to colonize and to pillage Africa, but also to destroy and obscure the direct ethnological, theological, cultural, and linguistic link to their own sacerdotal knowledge, which they knew originated in Africa. The divine serpent deity was central to African matriarchal and oracular tradition. It not being indigenous to European culture only served to further perpetuate and to make believable the fantastical lies and myths of bizarre orgies, dark rituals, and African debauchery perpetuated by the church. Over time, all of Europe began to formulate a white racial identity based upon specific phenotypic outer physical characteristics. One of the indicators of pure Aryan blood was not to possess a lineage of any Tyrian, meaning black, blood in one's veins. The Tyrians in Europe were identified as those serpent worshippers who introduced Mami Isis tradition into Rome and Ireland. So connected were the Nagas, the serpent worshippers, with the colored races that it became almost the exclusive litmus test for Aryan purity. So prejudiced were they against them that in 1865, James Ferguson, in his research on serpent worship, comments that, quote, "We have not in Germany, as we find in Greece, any traces of that underlying race of less intellectual Taurians who seem everywhere to have been the serpent worshippers all over the world." Ferguson, and that was according to an article he wrote, Tree and Serpent Worship, Illustrations of Myth and Art in India in the 1st and 4th centuries after Christ. Damn. The European peasantry, by now in utter ignorance, were just recovering from the Dark Ages, a deliberate condition orchestrated by the church papals to render Europe free once and for all of all African and Asian influence. They ordered the pillage and then the destruction of all their temples, mystery schools, universities, and libraries. African and other clerics were tried for heresy. Many were crucified, burned, or murdered, catapulting Europe into an abysmal darkness that for more than 500 years. Now, with the memory, ooh, shit. Oh my God. Now, with the memory slate of new generations of peasants wiped clean, it became convenient for the church to perpetuate its brand of Christianity on to the unsuspecting, ignorant masses. They were even more successful in convincing all of Europe into believing and perpetuating the stories circulated by the inquisitors, explorers, and Jesuits concerning African serpent-centered religious practices, particularly those of the fiercely autonomous African priestesses, whom they referred to as the immoral temple prostitutes condemned so bitterly by the Hebrew biblical patriarchs. In one propagandistic campaign, the following rumor was widely believed and became a popular folk chant. Quote, "At night, the men and women, as well as the Sibyl, turn into horrifying snakes, and whoever wants to enter the cave must first share lascivious pleasures with those revolting serpents." End quote. Europe was finally, quote, free. Areas where some vestiges of Sibyl or Isis traditions remained, those worshippers fell prey to ostracism, violence, and ridicule. One major object of their wrath was a Sibyl in Norcia, Italy, who apparently refused to relinquish her divine rights or to submit to papal control. She became the town folk's quintessential Black victim, and often harassed and taunted with the above chant. She was taunted and jeered as a crazed, wretched parasite who held orgies with animals, particularly the snake or the serpent. This stereotypic racist Euro model of African spirituality serves not only to justify African and diasporic oppression and underrepresentation in the global and political markets, but more importantly, it serves to obscure the ecclesiastical origins of the papacy and those of the virgin Sibyls. Even today, those African nations who continue to resist conversion will suffer the same fate as Togo, Benin, and Haiti, who dare dignify voodoo as their national religion. Some suspect that this defiant act of ancestral and deific respect may have even cost former president of Haiti, what was his name? Aristide, is that his name? Aristide, his presidency. Blaming the voodoo and all African spiritual traditions as the primary culprit for Africa's and diasporic economic problems and social woes is an old, worn colonial tactic mastered by the church, supported and reinforced by the Western pseudo-rationalistic philosophy and racist propaganda. Its primary and ultimate goal is to spiritually disempower Africans by culturally and theologically perverting their religions. And to discourage their mass appeal to outsiders anywhere in the New World. Come on and tell the truth. Oh, shit. All right, so we're going to talk about Chief Haunun Amangansi priestess Mama Zogbe, author of this magnanimous book. Mama Zogbe, legal name Vivian Hunter Hindru, is a fully initiated Hunan Amangansi high priestess of the Amangansi ancestral Chamba West African voodoo, Mami Wata, and Afa or Ifa healing traditions. She resides in the United States, where she maintains her ancestral shrines and works full-time as an Amangansi voodoo priestess and godmother. Born from the womb of Mami Wata and the voodoo, Mama Zogbe's spiritual lineage descends directly from both sides of her maternal and paternal great-grandmothers and fathers, whom were Mami Wata and voodoo priests, captured and enslaved as hired-out masons and carvers in Louisiana. During slavery and Reconstruction, African descendants were forbidden to practice their ancestral religions. Many were persecuted and murdered. Such was the case in the family of Mama Zogbe, where her great-grandfather, Prince Hunter, was killed in Natchitoches Parish in Louisiana. Family lore recounts that he, refusing to convert to Christianity, was chased into a barn and set ablaze. Let's see. Over time, the voodoo tradition was forced underground, and the deliberate process of mockery and racist malalignment began in American media, religious, and educational institutions, creating some of the most perverse, undeserved, and enduring stereotypes of African religions, which has continued unabated until present. After more than 30 years of intense manifestational encounters and personal suffering, Mama Zogbe received her first ceremonies in Togo, West Africa, by Hunan Togwe master Akwete Dirchbad, and full initiations by 1996. She completed her final series of ceremonies as Chief Hunan Amangansi in 2003 to 2005. As a full lineage African-American priestess, Mama Zogbe is the first to initiate many in the diaspora to Mami Wata and Mama Chamba, voodoo, and Amangansi tradition. She is a graduate of Chaminade University in Honolulu in 1981 and Augusta State University in Georgia in 1995. She is world-traveled South America, France, Italy, Czechoslovakia, Germany, Austria, Mexico, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and others. She has been traveling in Togo, West Africa, regularly since '88. Mama Zogbe is also the founder and president of the first nonprofit 501c3 Mama Wata Healing Society of North America, formerly Oath, Organization of African Traditional Healers, which recently won a long overdue victory with the U.S. Library of Congress in changing the classification of African traditional religions from the historically derisive label of occult Satanism to African spirituality, religion, and African American studies. Her hopes that her 2-volume, well-researched book, Mami Wata, an ancient African goddess unveiled, can be used as an instrument to shed much-needed history and accurate knowledge on African ancient traditional religions and their crucial but long-omitted role in laying the theological, ritual, and cultural foundation of the major religions throughout the ancient world. Now, that, my dears, is the official end of this most magnanimous, wonderfully mind-blowing piece of literature here, entitled The Sibyls, the First Prophetesses of Mami Wata and the Theft of African Prophecy by the Catholic Church, baby. African women are, okay, and then this is something that she's written on the back. I'm going to read it because it looks great. African women are the only women in the world whose ancient mothers were not born under the yoke of patriarchy. During ancient times, for the first 6,000 years, Africa was ruled by a powerful order of matriarchs. Considering the current status of African women in the world today, one could hardly be convinced that her matriarchal presence and the enormous influence she wielded in the ancient world had far exceeded the limited physical, cultural, and geographical and political designations of which Africa and her religions are confined today. Come on. During her reign, African religions had reached very high levels of theological and ritual development, and were the original spiritual home of the world's first great oracles, prophetesses, and prophets. Under the rising tide of African patriarchy, the sacerdotal order of the Sibyls were sold as slaves to build and work the powerful oracles they established in ancient Greece, Rome, Turkey, and Babylon. What is now currently the holy seat of the Vatican in Italy was originally the sacerdotal seat of these ancient Black Sibyl queen mothers. Centuries before Christ, they were known to heal the sick, restore dignity and strength to the weak, and to restore sight to the blind. They were famous for curing lameness, epileptics, deaf mutes, and lepers. They were said to cast out demons and even to raise up the dead. Their prophecies are the oldest and most authentic in the world. They were the basis for Greek and Roman tragedies and plays. More astonishing, their prophetic books were later collected by the Roman authorities, who needed a Western theological foundation in order to compete with the powerful Levitical Jews. These Sibyl prophecies soon became the sole and undisputed precursor to the Western Christian Bible. Come on, y'all. As the first established sacerdotal African matriarchs, the Sibyls' cultural and religious impact was arguably the most profound on ancient civilization that modern history has ever revealed or cared to admit. From Mesopotamia to Libya to Marzarim, Kemet, Egypt, Ionia, Minoa, Peloponnese, Turkey, and Mycenae, Greece, and later Rome, the Sibyls were the primary divine Vatican and absolute moral authority. The absence of African women's contribution in world history as major economic, political, and spiritual players, as opposed to exceptions to the norm or mere appendages of great men, has been problematic and disturbing at best. For the first time ever, her real story is being unearthed, revealed, and told. In its telling, many shocking revelations that remained hidden for more than 2,000 years will finally be known. Hey, so if you didn't get it, listen to me read it. Get the book, The Sibyls, the First Prophetesses of Mami Wata in the Theft of African Prophecy by the Catholic Church by Mama Zobe. Get the book. I think I'm going to end there. I know it's super short for me. I know y'all ain't used to that, but I am actually entertaining company and I have to cook and stuff. And this weekend is going to be a very busy weekend. So since I finished this book, since it's done, I'm going to, I am still promising, I am still making the commitment to do a temple service this Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is not going to be at the art gallery as it has been. I'm going to do it here from the house. So it's just going to be me speaking, and I have a very specific topic through which I'm going to be talking about this week. It's not going to be long. I'm going to keep it at an hour. I'm not going to do the regular 2-hour service because it's not an actual service where I actually have people performing and art premiered and stuff like that. So we're just going to do, I'm just going to do a presentation just to get us back on a regular schedule of doing the temple services every first and third Saturday of the month. So this will be the first official one that I'm doing since I got back from my 6-week stint in Alabama. And that will be this Saturday at 11 p.m. I'll be posting over the next 48 hours all the information on how to log in. Hopefully this freaking weird thing that I have going on with my connection will be resolved by then. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, follow all my shit. Daughter of the Fates on everything. Cassandra Faye Floyd. If you can't find it under Daughter of the Fates, that's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all the things, all the things, all the things. Also, I want to encourage you all to follow me on medium.com. If you're not currently subscribed to medium.com, it's a $5 a month subscription, but I am going to start writing. I just posted my first article last week, I believe, on medium.com. So go to medium.com and then look up Daughter of the Fates. I'm Daughter of the Fates on medium.com too. And read the first article that I published and support my shit. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Thank you very much. It's great to see you. I'll have a good presentation for you Saturday morning. In the meantime, let's make this shit pop.